After losing everything, Mkapendeza and little Dick are left with nowhere to sleep except a cold bus stand at night. But what begins as homelessness soon turns into a tragedy that shocks an entire nation. In this part 5 of the story, a desperate Mkapendeza finally confronts the powerful people she believes destroyed her family, and little Dick's life changes forever. Pain. That night, after long, silent thoughts, Mkapendeza reached a heartbreaking conclusion. The only place left for her and Dick to sleep was the local council bus stand. The landlord eventually evicted her. Whenever homeless Mkapendeza failed to get part-time job, she spent her days wandering aimlessly through the market carrying little Dick. In the evenings, she delayed going to the bus stand by sitting quietly inside local brew shops until late at night. Then, around 10 p.m., she would quietly enter the bus stand and sleep there with Dick, hoping nobody would notice. For almost a month, they survived like that. During that season, temperatures dropped drastically to between 0 and 4 degrees centigrade. Sleeping at the bus stand under such freezing conditions meant that Mkapendeza and little Dick endured countless sleepless nights. Mkapendeza barely rested at all. Each morning she woke up physically exhausted, weak, and emotionally drained. Within a very short time, the harsh cold and endless suffering severely deteriorated her health. Then, eventually, the local council militia identified her as a frequent sleeper at the bus stand. One night he confronted her.
Sleeping at the bus stand is prohibited. Some people sleeping at the bus stand often steal from innocent travelers.
He warned her never to return again, but she had nowhere else to go. The next night she returned, then again and again. As the days passed, the local council militia reported Mkapendeza's presence to the officer in charge of the bus stand. The following morning, before she could quietly leave the terminal, the militia arrested her and took her before the bus stand supervisor for questioning. The officer warned her firmly that sleeping at the bus stand was strictly prohibited. But Mkapendeza had nowhere else to go. Even after the warning, she continued returning to the bus stand night after night. To avoid being noticed, she would arrive very late, hoping the militia officers had already fallen asleep. Before dawn, she would wake up quietly, carry little Dick in her arms, and leave the terminal before the morning crowds arrived. Finally, one night, the militia arrested her and took her together with little Dick to the police station. At the police station, the local council militia reported that Mkapendeza had repeatedly been sleeping at the bus stand, despite several warnings from the bus stand supervisor. After hearing the report, the police informed her that she would be taken before the local council director the following morning to answer the allegations against her. They spent the entire night in custody. The following morning, the local council militia, together with other council officers, took Mkapendeza and Dick to the office of the local council director, located on the 3rd floor of the council building. The director sat with several senior officials. He began questioning her calmly.
"What is your name?"
Mkapendeza answered.
My name is Mkapendeza, and my little boy is called Dick.
"Why do you sleep at our bus stand?"
Mkapendeza answered softly.
Because I have nowhere else to sleep.
Then she narrated everything, from the confiscation of the family property, to the sale of their home, to the loss of the village land, to the Court of Appeal judgment, to the execution order, to the unpaid compensation worth 95 million ingananas from the local council. Then she paused. Tears filled her eyes. Finally, she spoke with deep pain.
This struggle has cost my husband's life, my father-in-law's life, my mother-in-law's life, my son's freedom, and scattered my children to unknown places. Yet your council still refuses to obey the court order to compensate us and return our shop rooms.
The room fell silent, but the director became visibly irritated. He replied coldly,
The government cannot be challenged by ordinary people. You have no claim against this council, and I warn you never to sleep at the bus stand again.
At those words, Mkapendeza broke into loud, uncontrollable crying. The director instructed one of his assistants to remove her from the office. The assistant held Mkapendeza's hand and dragged her outside the office, while little Dick followed behind crying. The office door closed. Moments later, a loud scream echoed through the building. Mkapendeza had thrown herself from the third floor onto the concrete pavement below. She died instantly. People gathered downstairs in shock. Blood spread across the pavement. The director and his assistants came out of the office and picked Dick and all rushed downstairs and found Mkapendeza's lifeless body surrounded by screaming onlookers. The director stood speechless. One assistant whispered quietly to another, if she had discussed and promised the director that part of the compensation would be given back to the director, the court order would probably have been enforced long ago. Little Dick cried uncontrollably beside the body. One council assistant gently asked the child,
Was that your mother or your grandmother?
Dick answered while crying, saying that she was his mother. The director assigned and instructed 2 local council officials to follow the necessary procedures to arrange Mkapendeza's burial and send little Dick to an orphanage. A few days later, the president visited the state to inaugurate a newly constructed government hospital. During private discussions, the state governor informed the president about the tragic death of Mkapendeza, the wife of the late Pandem Mlalahoi, whose suffering had resulted from the local council's prolonged failure to pay the court-awarded remedies owed to Pandem Mlalahoi's family. The president listened in silence. He showed no immediate intention of taking action against the council officials responsible for the family's suffering. But after a long pause, he finally said,
The young boy should not remain abandoned. I will adopt him.
The governor was instructed to arrange the transfer of Dick to the state house within 2 weeks, even though no formal legal adoption procedures had yet been completed. Yet even then, uncertainty remained. Because nobody truly knew whether Dick's biological mother was dead or still alive somewhere far away. The story of Pandem Mlalahoi became more than a family tragedy. It became the story of delayed justice, the story of ordinary people destroyed while waiting for legal protection that never truly arrived. A lawful property owner lost his property, his home, his health, his father, his mother, his wife, his dignity and freedom of the family, and finally his own life. Yet even after victory in the highest court, the suffering continued. Today, only silence remains, only memories, only scattered family members, only court files gathering dust while lives disappear. Justice delayed is painful, but justice without enforcement can destroy entire generations.
Respect the law. defend justice, protect families.
Please subscribe to our channel and follow the continuation of this sad story in Part 6.